From MTN News, this is Montana This Morning.
The boundaries for Montana's 2 new congressional districts are now set. Coming up, learn about a final boundary change made in Helena yesterday.
How Biden's Build Back Better plan could affect Montana families. I'll have more coming up.
Well, happy Wednesday, South. Oh, what a beautiful shot.
It is beautiful,
That's a postcard shot for our friends in the mining city. That on the Community Hospital of Anaconda ICAM. Chet Lehman, Matt Elbow with you here. Cruising right through our
we
day.
certainly are. Skies are clearing pretty quickly. We did have some snow in parts of the area, not a ton, but enough to wet the roadways. Now our skies are clearing, temperatures are falling.
Awesome.
Yep.
It's November.
Perfect November weather. Temperatures into the 20s, 23 degrees in Butte, 29 in Belgrade, 21 this morning in West Yellowstone. Looking at the area road conditions, overall we are doing okay. There are some snow and icy areas on Bozeman Pass, Homestake Pass, and down the Gallatin Canyon. Generally, it's pretty quiet conditions for us, though. Not a ton of moisture overnight. Today stays pretty dry. It will be windy and cool, though. Look for those daytime highs to stay into the upper 30s, near 40 degrees, but it is going to be a little breezy late in the afternoon. Also looks like we're seeing another round of potential snow before it's all said and done this week. We'll talk more about that coming up in just a few minutes.
My friend Matt Elwell, insider trading, got his lawn leaves mowed yesterday,
it's all,
knowing
I'm
this
ready.
was coming today.
Yep.
Insider trading, buddy, nicely done. 6:31, our top story this half hour. Commission drawing Montana's 2 new congressional districts affirmed its vote yesterday on the eastern and western districts endorsed last week. But it made one small adjustment to the boundaries. On a 3-2 vote with Democrats and the chair in favor, the panel moved about 1,500 people in Pend Oreille County into the eastern district. The change means the district boundary in Pend Oreille County will follow the edge of the Blackfeet Indian Reservation, which is entirely in the western district. But the 2 Democrats on the panel still voted Tuesday against the final plan, which they say creates 2 districts that favor Republicans. The 2 GOP commissioners and Chair Marilyn Smith voted to adopt the maps as they did in last Thursday's pivotal vote. Republican Commissioner Jeff Essman said he believes the Western District is not a shoo-in for Republican candidates, but Democratic Commissioner Kendra Miller disagreed. The panel will take one last final binding vote later this week before submitting the districts to the Secretary of State.
Neither district on this plan is seriously competitive. That's very unfortunate for our state and for our country, which has a dwindling number of competitive congressional districts. Candidates are pushed towards extremes in safe districts. We will continue to experience the consequences of those extremes moving forward.
Whether it is represented in the future by a Democrat or Republican, it will never be considered a safe seat in the 10 years going forward that would permit any candidate to not listen to the voters of that district. They're going to have to listen. They're going to have to campaign.
Again, the panel will take one last final binding vote later this week before submitting those districts to the Secretary of State. The boundaries will be in effect for the 2022 elections. Well, President Biden's Build Back Better plan proposing a child tax credit for children through the ages of 17. According to the plan, families would receive payments ranging from $3,000 to $3,600 per child. TN's Edgar Cedillo takes a look at how many Montana families would be affected by it.
As President Biden's Build Back Better plan takes center stage, many families are wondering how that will affect them, and including here in Montana, that could affect up to 90% of families.
Investments in children at young ages have really high returns.
Ms. like Harley Urban at MSU say the plan could benefit around 200,000 children across the state.
We know that Montana earnings are relatively low, that a lot of families will benefit from this.
The change with this tax credit would make it more accessible to lower income families. In Montana, this would extend to about 78,000 kids.
Is that for the first time, the credit is fully available to the families who need it most.
With this extended tax credit, it would be a direct payment to families. According to the Department of Health and Human Services, around 13% of a family's income is spent on childcare. With this tax credit, many hope that it will cut down on those costs.
With the pandemic, the importance of childcare has never been so obvious when schools closed, when daycare is closed.
Urban points that this could help families who cannot afford the cost of living in Montana.
How do we get people who grew up here, who have Montana roots, to really be able to move back and afford it? And now this is kind of one of those policy levers where the money is more here, right? More people will get it here, and that might actually allow more families to build a life here.
Urban and other economists hope that long-term this money will flow back into the economy.
Because not only does it help those children, right, and their parents to be able to be more economically self-sufficient, it also helps society.
Right now, Congress still has yet to vote on the Build Back Better plan, but Democrats in Congress say they're hoping to get it done by Thanksgiving. Reporting in Bozeman, Edgar Cedillo, MTN News.
All right, taking a look at some statewide headlines right now. A former Montana Corrections Department official has lost her human rights claim against the state. Claim said her job was eliminated in 2018 in retaliation for a sexual harassment claim she made against the director at that time. Adrienne Cotton's position of government relations director eliminated in an agency reorganization several months after she complained that the then director, Reginald Michael, had made sexually suggestive remarks to her. She sued the department in 2019 for wrongful discharge and filed a human rights claim with the state. Late last week, a state hearings officer denied her claim. The ruling said Cotton did not show a causal link between the reorganization and her sexual harassment claim. Cotton declined Tuesday to comment on the ruling, which can be appealed in court. Her separate lawsuit against the state remains on hold in State District Court in Helena. Well, drivers have been pulled over for everything from having their music too loud to having an air freshener obstructing their view. Cities and states are changing some of these traffic laws so drivers cannot be pulled over as easily. Dan Grossman shows us how the goal is to reduce profiling.
When we are driving and those lights come on, most drivers have the universal response to pull over. But what comes next is far from universal.
Being pulled over by police was what I would like to call a cultural norm.
Isaiah Thomas grew up in a world where many of his life decisions were guided by this very scenario.
We would purchase our car based on the likelihood of being pulled over or not being pulled over. The amount of people you would drive with would be predicated on this idea of not wanting to get pulled over.
It's why last year, when he was elected as a council member at large for the city of Philadelphia, he campaigned on the platform that he'd change it.
We feel like an entire generation can be changed as it relates to their perception of law enforcement and law enforcement relations.
Last week, Philadelphia became the first major city in the country to ban police from pulling over drivers for these low-level traffic infractions, which alone used to warrant a stop. It's to reduce the profiling Black men and women and other drivers of color say they face daily across the country.
Their job as public servants are to try to reduce crime, so on occasion they pull people over in a traffic stop to try to see if they can get something probable cause to search the car.
Stacey Hervey is a criminal justice professor and says data proves what Black men and women have long suspected. They're pulled over at a disproportionately higher rate than white drivers. An analysis of 14 years of traffic stops by the University of South Carolina shows Black drivers are 63% more likely to be pulled over than their white counterparts, and they're 115% more likely to be searched during that stop. Even though data shows contraband, like illegal guns or drugs, are found more often when a white driver is searched. It's one of the many reasons why another study of 95 million traffic stops by Stanford University concluded that police stops and search decisions suffer from persistent racial bias.
Our past and how we were raised really does impact what we do, and I think the more we realize that as a society and in police departments, the better off we're all going to be and the better off police officers are going to be.
In August, the city of Minneapolis proposed adopting similar measures that would ban traffic stops on certain grounds. And the state of Virginia did something similar in March when it said law enforcement could no longer stop drivers for a non-illuminated license plate, broken brake lights, or tinted windows.
I think the main goal in passing this legislation was to put us in a position where we can address the issue of driving while Black.
Philly's new law won't go into effect for another 3 months. But once it does, Councilman Thomas hopes its adoption becomes more universal nationwide. I'm Dan Grossman.
6:39, time for a break.